There, everyone. Yeah, at the last iMoot, I did a presentation on being a sort of a Lone Ranger Moodler. I run a Moodle system for myself, basically, which I use in a school which doesn't have any kind of virtual learning environment. And I use it to teach, mostly to teach businessmen and groups of trainees, teaching, for the most part, English as a foreign language. I have to do everything myself. I'm a one-man band, and I compete with some pretty big companies, which means that my image is quite important to me. And getting things right, and certainly getting the materials right, and producing materials that are very much tailored to the needs of the customer are an important asset, which I protect very much. The important thing is trying to, or having to produce something that competes with a company that has specialists. And Moodle actually allows me to do this because I can produce sites that look just as professional as theirs. And this presentation has really grown out of a presentation from Joyce Seitzinger at the last iMoot about learner design, or LX design, sorry, I should say, which really got me thinking about tweaking the site to make the learning experience better for people. And I started looking around at things to improve things. I'm not a programmer in any way, shape, or form. The last time I wrote a program, I was at school at about the age of 16, where I had a ZX Spectrum, which older people here may know. And with that, I wrote a program for betting on horse races, which was so successful that I'm here telling you about Moodle now. And I've really had very, very little contact with any type of coding. I looked at some HTML on a course I did about 20 years ago, and that's really it. So I'm not really in a position to do all these wonderful things. And when I start looking at the developers, the developers forum on Moodle.org, it all goes way above my head. So what I needed was something that can change things without having to do a great deal of programming. And writing a new block was just not something that I could look at to tweak my site or to provide an extra service. And I heard about something that Justin Hunt, the developer behind Poodle, which is an essential system for language teaching, does a lot of audio and video work. And takes a lot of the load of that off my mind when with Moodle. And Justin produced this thing called Generico. And I had a look at the videos on YouTube. And Justin is, of course, a really experienced developer. And what he said, again, went way over my head. It didn't speak to me. And I sort of thought, okay, well, that was fun. And I got back on with my life. And it really all started with getting a question on the Moodle forum about embedding a widget from Wolfram Alpha. And I thought, oh, I need to do that as well. And Justin published something which suggested that Generico would be a solution. So using my typical approach of just brute force, finding out how things work, I created a widget which embedded Wolfram Alpha, and took me a few minutes. And I thought, now I'm starting to understand what this Generico thing is all about. And I started playing with it. And really, it's been quite a short but intensive journey. And I've really discovered that it's an enormously useful tool for changing items on a Moodle site without having to do enormous amounts of coding. What it basically, or what I've done with almost everything that I produced here, is to use cut and paste. There are, I discovered that there are things called JavaScript snippets, which are tiny pieces of code which do jobs. And they're available all over the internet. If you Google them, you'll find hundreds of thousands of the things, all doing different jobs. And a lot of these you can more or less copy and paste straight into a Generico filter. And it will do the same job for you in Moodle without having to install lots of extra code in your themes and in your base thing, which a lot of teachers aren't able to do, or a lot of course creators aren't able to do. What I'm going to do is to share my desktop with you now, and go through a few of the filters and show you the effects that they've done. And then I'll come back to the slide here a little bit later. So there may be a small hiccup now while I share the desktop. I hope it all goes well. We'll see what happens. When I'm sharing the desktop, I'm a bit blind as to what's going on. So if people give messages, I'm going to have to rely on Wendy to scream at me and say that it's not working. But we'll have a go and see what happens now. So kill the screen. Mm-hmm. I'm just waiting for it to load. Nothing seems to have happened just yet. Need to allow. Right. Okay. In theory, that should be showing the main window of my screen. Is that okay? That's good. Okay, so right. Wendy, could you just unmute yourself and say if you can tell me if you can see now settings for Generico template label? Or I'll go quickly back to the chat. That's okay. Yeah. Okay. Apparently, people can see that. So, this was the first template that I actually wrote myself, or I didn't write myself. This is the first template I copied out of the internet, and I saw it at the Moodle MOOC, or I saw the effect at the Moodle MOOC, and this was they had on all their forums for anybody that's done the Moodle MOOC. They had a little label which said completion information. And it really stood out, and I thought, "Oh, that's good." And a couple of people talked about this this label, and I was told it was a piece of code. And the piece of code is the bottom line here. You put that code into the HTML part of your label, and you have a nice looking little label, which looks rather like this one here, Google Form Embedding or Newsflash. What I thought was rather useful was that the standard label takes its color from the Moodle theme, or the base theme, and is a rather sort of light blue or turquoise color. If you look on my course page for this presentation, you'll see it in its normal form. And so what I wanted to do was make it look like the fit with the theme that I'm using, which in this case is More Candy. And I discovered that this theme is based on something called Bootstrap or Bootstrap Base, which most of the new Moodle themes are based on. And so again, I Googled it and found the source of most of my code, which is a website called W3 Schools. And I basically looked for how to change backgrounds. And this is W3 Schools website, and you can see here on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a lot of subjects. There's HTML, JavaScript, graphics, and a number of other things. And I put Google into the search and found all these Google's. I put Bootstrap into the search and found they have pages of information on how to use code. And I discovered how to make the background code the same color as the site that I use. And so that produced this little label. In itself, it's a nothing, but it's something that appears in an awful lot of activities that I use. And to create it, I'll turn on editing. And it's simply a matter of using the Generico button in the Atto editor. And there I've got some that I've already created. Label, I put the text that I want. Insert it. And there we have it. One of the really great advantages of this is doing things like this doesn't usually, by just pasting the code, doesn't work in, for example, in forum posts, but the Generico filter does. Some elements of Moodle strip code out of the background of their display. So when you paste this code into the HTML editor, it gets stripped out. Generico keeps it out of the way and reuses it. And that means that you can add these things to forums. And nearly all of the elements that I'm going to show you actually can appear in a forum. It's a very small thing, but it got me started. So having proved to myself that I was able to produce code or steal code, I started to look at the second filter that I produced, and this was jumping into very deep cold water. It was called Newsflash, and it was, again, firstly, the idea was stolen. it's produced on a wonderful site called classtools.net from Russell Tarr, who produces lots of little widgets for teachers to produce small add-ins to their lessons. And he had one of these, but embedding it in a forum was a problem, which was where I first wanted to use it. And I also wanted to take things under my own control and not always have to embed frames from other websites. And so I wanted to put things in my own, completely under my own control. And again, I Googled this and found that there was an element called Canvas, which you can see here, which is to do with HTML. And in Canvas, I will... I found this again on the W3 Schools website. And here's one of the great things about this website is that it has this button here. You see the code, and it has this button here, try it yourself. And you get this window with the code and the result. And so here, there's a box 200 by 100. So I change it to 300, see result, and there it is. And then you change the bits that you want and then copy them into Generico. And in fact, I built some of the Generico filters using this try it thing by adding bits from other elements to this window here and getting the results. So I could test things without going to the website, my own Moodle site all the time. I'll just quickly come back to the screen and see if there's any message here. Yeah, Generico button in. That's a straightforward plugin, Jeff. I see you've seen it there. I think there's also one for some of the other editors, like Tiny MCE, I think also has a button. Makes it much easier to add everything in. This code here is all copied, every single bit of it. And what I did was, first of all, use Canvas to basically put a picture on the screen. I found out how to do that. And then I Googled text on image HTML and found snippets again, which did that. And I kept copying them into my my image file and seeing what happened. And here you have the thing. It looks quite complicated, but it's really a simply copy, paste, test, change, test, change, test. And I'm sure that a real programmer, and I don't know, some of you here may have experience with coding and with programming, might laugh at this and say, oh, you know, that it would be much easier to do it from scratch. It's probably true, and I'm sure it would be quicker. But this file took me about a couple of hours of copying and pasting and testing to put together. And really, here's an example of it, one that I produced recently. Here you have the result. You have this sort of fake news flash. One of the nice things is I've run it in a course with a forum where the students have created, if you like, a sort of a series of news flashes talking to each other, updating a story as it goes through the day. What this requires, and nearly all of the filters that I have created require, is to have somewhere to store the original text or the original images. And what I did with this one, and with all of them, is I've created folders in Google Drive. I'm a big fan of Google Drive, and the freedom it gives to share documents makes it very useful for these purposes. And so here I have a Generico folder. Each of the filters that I use has its own folder. And if we go to the news flash, here I have the code, which will be available to you all to copy and use as you like. This was also on Moodle.org about a month ago, as I was looking to present some things, and I had a few problems with it, and Justin kindly helped me out with one of the issues there. And here you can see all this code. Again, none of which I wrote myself. And there's notes on how to change it to make your own version, what you need to in, how to change the color if you want, moving the blocks around. So these files will be available to you all later today, and you'll be able to have a look at those. But what I had was a folder here, and it's typical of a lot of the filters, a folder where I put the base images. And as you can see, I tested with some dynamic newsreader type images here. And all you need to create the folder is your own idea for text and the file name. You actually need this file name here. And what I'm very quickly going to do is make that name a bit easier to read. Okay, I just changed the name of that file. Now we'll go into my course here, and I'll create a new one. Show you how it works. So newsflash. Oh. So here, the dialog boxes really only show the names of the variables that you have to put in. So it can be, you have to really note these down or copy them or remember them. So the location, yeah, we'll put Salzgitter. And then click on Insert. There's the from Alpha widget, which started all this process off. And there we have it. Nice and easy to produce. You can share if you put the background images in a file, which is available to users, and list the names, they can create their own then. And that works really quite neatly. It's a nice little way of catching people's attention. I used a similar thing to remind some students at school that the test really was happening the next day, and to remind them to actually do some work. Much better than a rather boring forum post. One of the more useful ones that I created was, again, using a process. You'll see that a lot of these things are created in the same way. Was embedding a Google form, which in itself is quite simple, but I wanted to make it a little more space saving. And so what I did was created again, copied a button, which, where are we? We know. Google Form embedding. And what that does is create a little drop down, which embeds the form that way. It doesn't take up huge amounts of real estate on the screen. The scroll of death can be a problem with Moodle, and this makes things a little bit more compact. And so getting a feedback form and putting it there is rather neat, solves a lot of problems, and makes it all a little bit easier on the eye. What's also rather neat is it allows you to actually get some kind of questioning or feedback activity within a book. I created here a book of 1 page, which has a YouTube video, and there the form's embedded. People can directly get back within the book without having to go out of it and come back into other things. This feedback is then Google Form directly added to a spreadsheet within Google Drive. And if I go back to the form, I can now click some things. And that appears live as an entry, as a new entry in the form, in the spreadsheet attached to that form. So quite a neat way of getting feedback and bedded into book items. Can also then, of course, be put into a forum for a survey or something like that. No questions? Everybody's either dying of boredom or they're completely wrapped in attention. We'll carry on. Again, none of that code was created me personally. It's all been done as a by copy and paste and just changing numbers. One thing I will say before I go on, you'll note here the back button. One of the elements that Bootstrap uses is it has its own color coding for primary buttons, info buttons, and they don't. It's fine. I can understand their thinking, but I preferred to create buttons that actually match the coloring within my site. So I created my own button. Again, there's a thing called Button Creator, which I'll post a link to as well in the course. And you can create your own button class within CSS, which I then took and called it Generico, so that all buttons in Generico can use that. And that was added to the appearance and additional HTML. And here you can see, here's my button. The text color is white. That's the background color. It's actually a small gradient, but the gradient, if the gradient won't display, it defaults down to this color. And there's the border, and that fits in with my theme rather nicely. And that's available as button Generico. And when I go back to the Google form template, you'll see here button Generico. In the code that I have given you, because you haven't got that button, I've used the standard, which is button info. But if you want to change the buttons, you can. It's not terribly difficult. You can set things up then to look exactly the way you want them to look. Nice for control freaks. Right, so course banner. I found that a lot of people weren't reading introductory text in courses. It's something that you sort of feel has to be there. And I noticed really that I tested it on a few school courses and found that the kids simply weren't reading it because there was key things in it I placed there, and then I just asked them and they didn't know what I was talking about. And so what I did was, and also to save a little bit of space, looking for the where is it? Yeah, I created this banner. Again, the item is called carousel, and this changes the it has 4 items: an image, text. These are placeholders. This is something just to test that everything works, but allows then to take very little space and add some key concepts that the course is going to look at in an easy way. And I think it looks quite impressive. It brings everything, it makes the page a little bit more intensive. And then using the grid format, you can go into the course as normal. And this is something which I'm building and putting together at the moment. But again, a rather smaller than the usual carousel that you might see on a front page, but very useful to add to individual courses. And here, again, quite a lot of information. Creating it is simply having the code or the names of files. Here I have a folder images, which is shared publicly. There are the files, which you can only see the here I created all these files with an image and an area for text, and the carousel draws these files from this folder and adds text, which you give him via the dialog box, which makes for a very easily produced carousel. Quite a nice idea. You could update it regularly on a course, maybe with information for each week, or key elements to look at this week would be possible use for something like that. Without having to write some kind of journal entry, it creates a very visual image. That's really, again, there's I've created a document with the code and notes on how to do this. One last one I'll have a look at before I hand over for questions is specialists. This is something that slightly annoys me about the Atto editor is that there is apparently a philosophy with it that it should be very minimalistic. And it is apparently possible to change things in it, but creating different styles is really quite difficult. I've asked about this once or twice, and it seems that the developers feel that having more styles can create a very unclear interface. The problem is if you don't like the styles that they offer, you're rather stuck. And so one of the things I wanted to do was create slightly more visual lists. And so I went to my new best friend Generico and found out how to create new list styles. And this is one which I'll actually fill in live for you because it's rather tricky to explain otherwise. But instead of the standard bullet points, what you do is special list. These X's are here for they are default entries. I've set it up to have a maximum of 6 items in the list, which I think is enough. If you leave an X in one of the fields, it is then ignored and not printed. If you leave it blank, it will think that there's a blank as an answer. And so here we have 0.1. And I'll leave the others blank. And here, again, a shorthand code. These letters T, C, P, Q, or E refer to tick, cross, pound sign, question, or exclamation mark. And what I'll actually do is just put the T in. And if we save that, you have a list with ticks instead of with normal bullet points. I think that's it. Certainly in languages, it's sometimes good to have ticks and crosses. So I have a short list with positive things and another one below it with crosses, and this creates it rather neatly, and certainly it adds a bit more variation to the presentation. Here I have a folder called icons, which has these small crosses and small exclamation marks for the lists. There's also others which are used in other files here, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. And that's a rather neat way of creating your own personalized image. The countdown clock was another one that I produced, ideal for an HTML block, and you can set it any time you want on it. You set a deadline and it simply counts down towards it. Here it's counting down towards the launch of a new course that I will see on this page and remember that I've got to get some work done. So that's another nice use. You can put then the countdown timers in labels or in HTML blocks on different courses with different times. The last thing I wanted to show you was the Symbaloo. Symbaloo, for people who don't know, is a rather nice way of collecting links. Where is it? Some useful links. And Symbaloo has an education account or you can use a personal account, and you create these tiles with different you can create your own tiles on these things, and this makes a great start page for in schools, in lots of classes. We have an IT Symbaloo page. It means when the kids log in, they're presented with the information that you want them to deal with. Again, links are something which can end up a rather long list or a page, a pop-up window or something like this. And I use the same code that was for the Google form to embed the Google form, but created one that embeds Symbaloo links lists. And that's something you can use to, you create the file in Symbaloo, you get an embed code, and you just paste that into this link, into this Generico filter, and you have a nice embedded list of links which you can create as many as you like. If you check something within Symbaloo on that link, everything is updated. All links on different courses are automatically updated for you. So a rather nice way of doing things. I think that's really everything, and I'm certainly running out of time. I don't want to go on any longer than this. What I've got to do is find out how to stop screen sharing. Ah, yeah, close screen sharing. Right, so are you all back on the page now with me? Hope so. If you've got any questions, either unmute yourself and ask a question or type anything there. Hope it's been useful. One thing I will do is I have to say I did something which I thought was really clever, which I used a website called JavaScript Beautify, which indented all the text in the way that proper programmers do it. Unfortunately, it broke a lot of the text, and it inserted gaps which caused the files not to work again. So one file which I really wanted to show, which was a pop-up, was completely mangled, and it meant that a lot of the files that I created, the text is slightly wrong. So I'm editing those this morning. When I get to school, I have a couple of lessons free mid-morning, and I'll be posting those files with the code and the notes on how to use them, and the other what all of the variables mean, so you can use those yourself, and you're more than welcome then to copy them and use them however you like. I hope that's been useful, and what I would say is if you do it yourself, don't make your Java code look really smart. It really can, these online services really can break it. So if you've got any questions, please ask. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the iMoot, and I hope to see you in one or two of the presentations later today.
I just want to jump in and quickly say thank you, Andy. I just need to pop off to another room in a minute. But thank you so much. That was really interesting, and we got a lot out of that. That was brilliant. And the screen sharing worked brilliantly, so that was awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, and you're welcome to, we've got just a minute or so, but otherwise don't forget you can still go on the forums and keep chatting with each other about some of the questions you might have for Andy. Thanks so much, Andy.
Been a pleasure.